I'm Sarah Cantrell, and today's video addresses what is a good ACT score. And this is a question I get asked all the time, and it's pretty hard to answer because it totally depends upon you and what you want out of a test. So what's actually on the ACT? Well, there are 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science reasoning. And these 4 sections comprise your total score, your composite score. The English section tests English, grammar, and rhetoric. It is, as far as questions are concerned, this is the longest section. There's 75 questions, 45 minutes. The math section is the longest as far as time is concerned, 60 minutes with 60 questions. This is math ranging from Algebra 1 all the way up through Pre-Cal and Trig. The reading section has 40 questions and 35 minutes, and there are 4 passages that you read. The science reasoning section also has 40 questions and 35 minutes, and there's 6 or 7 passages depending on the test, and they ask you to think like a scientist. So each one of these sections you get a score for, and then they average them together to give you your composite score. So let's just take a quick look at these so that you can see what's going on. And what you're looking at here is the percentile for each score. The ACT, a perfect score is a 36. So on each English section, a 35 is about the 99th percentile. A 69% would be a 23, and then a 36 percentile would be a 17. So you can kind of see where you would fall. The 50 percentile is somewhere between the 19 and a 21. And remember, with percentiles, the 50 percentile is the point where half of the people that took it are better than you and half of the people are worse than you. So that would be right at average. Here are the math percentiles mapped onto the scores, the reading ones, and the science reasoning ones. So for most of these, the 50 percentile falls somewhere around a 20.5. The composite score, so the average of all these scores, you can see as well, they're kind of the same. In order to be in the 99th percentile, you're going to have to score a 34 or a 35, although the composite 99th percentile is a 33. So again, what do these mean? Well, they mean different things to different people. I don't know for you what your score is that you need. Are you trying to get into college? Is that it? Are you just trying to get admission? Are you trying to get the best scholarship that there is? So a good score for you kind of depends upon your goals. Well, how do you get there? All right, so a 99th percentile is a 35 in English. Great. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, here is the same information with the number of questions that you have to get right mapped onto it as well. And these will change a little bit from test to test, but more or less it's the same. So English, for example, has 75 questions. So in order to make a 35, you can miss about 3 questions and still, have a pretty good score. On math, it's kind of the same thing. In order to make a 34, you can miss 3 questions. But in order to make a perfect score, you have to be quite perfect. Most people aren't trying to make those stellar scores. Most people are perfectly content to make at benchmark, or they want to make at admission status, which would be a 21 for most schools. So where is that? Well, these benchmarks I'll put up here for you with these black bars. And the benchmark is the point at which ACT says that if you make this score, you have about a 50% chance of making a B or better in a class of that subject during your freshman year of college, or about a 75% chance of making a C or better. So if you make an 18 on the English test, you have about a 50-50 shot of making a B in your freshman level English classes. You can see that the benchmark level is a little bit higher in math and reading, and then in science reasoning, the benchmark would be a 23. So let's put this in perspective. In order to make that benchmark 18 on English, you can miss about 33 questions. which means that you only have to make a 56%. You only have to get 56% of your questions right. When I frame it like this for students, they start feeling like, hey, wait a second, I can do this. I can make a 56%. I don't have to be perfect. So I find that breaking the information down like this is really helpful for student morale. With math, in order to make that benchmark 22, you can miss about 27 questions, which means you only have to make a 55%. And math especially is the one where I have students telling me, but I don't know half this stuff. And I get to tell them, you only have to know half this stuff. So this is good news. With reading, in order to make benchmark, you can miss 17 questions, which means you only have to make a 58% on it. And with science reasoning, you can miss about 15 questions, making about a 33% on it. So good news all around. Okay, remediation. Most colleges will require students to take remedial classes if they do not make a 19 in the subject area. So for English, math, and reading, you have to make a 19 in those subject area tests in order to not have to take remedial classes on the college level. Over 60% of Arkansas students, freshmen at the college level, are taking remedial classes. So you're in good company if you have to take remediation, but it's always a good thing to not have to do that. So what do you have to do to make that magic 19? Well, you can miss 31 questions, which means that you only have to make a 57% on English. On math, you only have to make a 47%. On reading, it's right at 50%. So that magic 19 number is not terribly hard to get to as long as the students are clear on what it takes to get there, which is really only knowing about half of your stuff. And then, of course, there's unconditional admission. For both universities in Arkansas, unconditional admission is a 21 composite score. So what do you have to do to make that? Well, here's the breakdown there. I really encourage you to share this information with your students, especially if you have a student who is discouraged about the ACT. You don't have to be perfect on it. And in fact, you really only have to know about half of the content of the test in order to be unconditionally admitted to your university and not have to take a single remedial class.